Do you ever get to be a big fan of a game developer and you start to think, I wonder what they used to put out in the old days? Well, I do, and it's both a curse and a curse. On the one hand, it can show you the tiny buds from which bigger ideas bloomed or how they've improved over the years. On the other hand, it may also reveal that they didn't know what they were doing. And from there we have today's topic.
Lure of the Temptress was Revolution Software's first ever release, also marking the debut of their virtual theatre engine, which was used later down the line for Beneath a Steel Sky and two of the Broken Sword games. The impetus behind the engine was that Revolution weren't content with the non-player characters merely waiting around until plot happens to them. They wanted a game world to be more like an actual world. Characters would wander about, talk to one another, and follow their own routines.
They did that? I've got a snarky plot dump to do before I discuss all that, so here goes.
You play as a young peasant named Derped, employed as a beater of the king's hunting party. In what is otherwise the medieval fantasy kingdom of peace and prosperity, news arrives of a rebellion in a far-off village. Mr. King and co. rush off to deal with the filthy peasants. Unfortunately, Derped's pony decides to join in the fun regardless of what he actually tells it to do. Unfortunately, they're not facing a rebellion at all. It's a band of Squirrel, acting under the command of an enchantress named Selena, the titular Temptress. Orcs fall, everyone dies, Derped's taken prisoner instead of being killed. I don't know, maybe it was tasty looking. So now you have to do an escape, defeat the Temptress, and save the land because shut up. Okay, actually that's a bit unfair. Charles Cecil, the game's director, always found Sierra Games to be a bit on the twee side, destiny mandating that King Graham saves Daventry for the umpteenth time through a series of unlikely events. Actually, I'm starting to see a couple of similarities here. Anyway, Mr. Cecil and programmer Tony Warrener were inspired down a mildly realistic path. Not all the way serious though, the Squirrel are comically stupid at times, but not ridiculously fairy tale either. Considering the first thing you encounter after escaping your cell is a dying man hanging from the wall begging for water, mission accomplished, I guess. But to get out of your cell in the first place, you need to use the interface, and that's a unique experience in itself. Left click a place for man to go place, left click an object to get a description of object. That part's boring, but just wait until you right click. Oh Christ on a cheese wheel, what even is? Much verb, so menu, arg. Okay, calm down everyone, it's not too bad. You don't get all the verbs appearing at once, which is good because any other game this would have taken up half the damn screen. The list you get will match what you clicked on. Now, I gave the Orion Conspiracy some shit for limiting these verbs, but that game went too far with it, that was the problem. When you have only one or two actions to perform on something or someone, it pretty much gives away what you're meant to do, sometimes long before you were actually meant to do it. In Lure of the Temptress, you get a far less obvious subset, and the interface actually works better than it looks. Rather than have to mouse over specific verbs to select them, you move the mouse up and down to move through the list, sometimes spawning another menu for fine tweaking, like picking items. The arrow key and return keys work too. But there's no indicator as to whether or not the list is larger than the box, you have to move the mouse all the way up and down to find that out.
And now we have the part I skipped over earlier, the AI.
Not something I usually need to talk about in a point-and-click, but there you go, brave new world. As mentioned before, the NPCs will be seen moving around, having conversations, and adhering to routines best known to themselves. The shopkeepers don't do that last one for obvious reasons. Now, the fact that the dev team pulled off all of this complex behaviour means that Lure of the Temptress is a really nifty feat for 1992, beating out both its own genre and some other games of the time.
And that's where my praise ends, because the implementation is fucked. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it, it's just fucked. Great in theory, pants in practice.
For some reason, they decided not to let people walk through each other, which sounds like a weird sentence when I say it out loud, but it makes sense in game, okay? Just go with it. Every fucker gets in your way here, especially when it comes to doorways or exits. You head towards an exit, confident in your ability to walk in a straight bloody line, only for some other twat to pop up and send you in the other direction with a murmured apology. And that's if the pathfinding works, something I hope a point-and-click would be able to pull off at the very least. I would have settled for walking in a straight line. Space Quest 3 managed that okay, and its main input was a text parser. Lure doesn't even let the characters walk diagonally. Half the time I told Derped to go somewhere, he'd dodder around in circles for a bit, then he'd just give up. A particular embuggerance when you're trying to talk to someone. And you don't have control of Derped while this merry dance is happening, so by the time he's forgotten what he's doing, the character I wanted to talk to isn't there anymore. All because someone decided to walk within a 3-foot radius. Or sometimes not even that. Look, maybe I was really unlucky here, but it's a trial and error element this game could do without.
And you know who gets in your way more than anybody else? Ratpouch. Fucking Ratpouch.
You rescue him from the dungeon at the start and he starts following you. He does show off one of the game's more impressive features though, allowing you to have other characters perform actions for you. This is done in the way one normally would in a point-and-click. Select verb, select object to verb, which just happens to be the opposite of how you perform actions on yourself. You can even chain together multiple actions for your NPC stalker to perform, which is pretty cool, assuming you can make it over to him to give those instructions in the first place. Here's me telling Ratpouch to go unlock a door for me. There's 2 doors in the area. Which one does Ratpouch go for? Why, the one that's A, unlocked, and B, fucking open! Turns out I had to use the lockpick on lock, which would make me feel dumb if the door didn't appear first in that list. It takes about 30 full seconds to walk over to him if I'm lucky, but I get there eventually after 3 tries and give Ratpouch his task. And it turns out I have to give him the lockpick first, which means doing that very thing, then trailing through the menu again to give Ratpouch his goddamn instructions. Again. Which he manages to carry out perfectly. Finally, you wee bastard, you did something right. So I walk over to the door to open it. Oh, god damn it, Ratpouch! Well, I wouldn't have given for a get the fuck out of my way command. Could have provided an opportunity for a non-standard game over too. Those Squirrel are walking around everywhere just begging to get that command in their face. It's not just movement the NPCs block either. They'll be having conversations with each other and you have to wait until they're done before you can jump in. Considering the whole kingdom in peril thing, derped is extremely polite, especially considering he never slaps Ratpouch upside the head for his constant crap. Admittedly, waiting on conversations makes more sense than 2 characters being unable to squeeze past each other, but by this point it was just pain upon many more pains. Oh, and sometimes Ratpouch decides to jump in ahead of you, so you have to wait on a conversation which you know fine well is pointless. Oh, just shut the fuck up, Ratpouch.
Sorry, Ratpouch just tends to set me off. Anyway, I even tried playing this in DOSBox in case ScumVM was the problem, and the pathfinding was better, but people were still constantly getting in my way. Anyway, that's easy for me to say when I've already got DOSBox set up. Out of the 2 methods, ScumVM is still the easiest way to get this up and running.
And other things I'm not fond of is the non-intuitive way you look at your inventory. If you pick Look from the menu, it describes your surroundings. If you pick Examine, it lists inventory items to look at.
Okay, this was annoying when Snatcher did it, and I love that game, so I'll be damned if I let it pass without comment here.
They are too similar, okay? Just list your goddamn inventory, and no, that status thing doesn't count. Okay, there are some good points I can talk about. The animation is above average, sadly not to the standards of later games. I do like the subtlety of the music actually, it's pretty much the only sound in the entire game, and yet they went the subtle route. Minimalist might be too lenient a term actually, it's barely a few notes most of the time, but it's always there, always reminding you of the game's tone and making things that tiny bit more tense. And there's the lack of the predestined hero trope that we've seen though, quite a lot of. And if you want to play it, it's free, as in completely, utterly, just download it from GOG or the ScumVM website kind of free. I may not like the game all that much, but it's still great when developers give the slightest of damns about their old titles, even more so when they're willing to pretty much say, yep, sure, here it is, enjoy. So, well done to them.
As for Lure itself, well, if you're going to play it at all, play it on DOSBox, but if you're short on spare time, give it a miss. There's better out there for the exact same price. Which I will remind you is free.